Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it.
We apply the analytical scalpel until the wires are exposed.
We examine the pieces, the narratives you internalize without question.
And expose the machinery inside, showing you exactly who built the cage and why.
Let's dive in.
What if everything about modern wellness and spirituality isn't just wrong, but is designed to be wrong?
Okay, so we are starting this deep dive in a really volatile space today. It's one that's often protected by this really thick shield of good intentions.
Right.
We're applying the scalpel not to the usual targets, not political extremism or corporate greed.
No, something much more personal.
Exactly. We're looking at the massive multi-trillion-dollar industry built around self-help, healing, and spiritual guidance.
That's right. And I think people assume, because the wellness movement uses words like love and light and personal sovereignty, that it's somehow inherently decentralized, that it's liberating.
Right, that it's the opposite of a system.
Exactly. And our mission today is to, pull back that curtain and identify the fundamental hidden thesis that's holding this entire empire up. We're asking, what is the true structural function of what we are calling the wellness prison?
And here's where it gets really, really interesting. The primary thesis we extracted from the deconstruction matrix. It's brutally simple.
It may be the hardest for people to accept.
I think so, because it feels so personal. It's this wellness spirituality is not an escape from control. It is an evolution of control mechanisms.
Let's unpack that, because that is a huge claim.
It is.
We've moved past the traditional models of control. The external ones.
Like what?
Fear of eternal damnation from a church, fear of the state, fear of your boss. That system was, it was inefficient.
Inefficient how?
Because you could see the authority figure. You could rebel against a visible priest or a king.
Okay.
The modern system just replaces that external dogma with these highly sophisticated, internalized standards of perfection.
So it's not a priest telling you you're a sinner.
No. It's you telling yourself you're not aligned enough. It's outsourced self-policing, and it's exponentially more effective.
What's so fascinating to me here is that the language of liberation is precisely what builds the cage.
Yes.
You have to think about the words they use. Authenticity, freedom, self-love, alignment, manifestation.
All positive words.
They're telling you, you are infinite, you are totally sovereign, but then what happens when you, the supposedly infinite sovereign being, can't manifest, basic financial security, or you get a chronic illness?
The logic demands an answer. If you are truly sovereign, then the failure can't be external. It can't be the system's fault.
Right.
Therefore, it must be an internal flaw.
It has to be your fault.
They tell you the door is open, you are free.
Right.
But the second you stop striving for that impossible internal standard, the perfect diet, the perfect mindset, the perfect emotional state, you believe the fault is yours.
Not the cage's design.
Never the cage's design. And that self-blame, that becomes the lock on the door.
So when the control is external, the rebel fights the priest or the politician or the king.
And that's hard. It requires collective action, political risk.
But when the control is internalized, when the guard is your own higher self or this fear of being low vibration.
The rebel just fights themselves. It's a closed loop. It's self-reinforcing. And it provides endless opportunities for consumption. Buy another course, another retreat, and zero chance of true liberation.
Which would always have to involve critiquing the system itself.
Always. So to really dismantle this architecture, we need a framework, a rigorous one.
Okay.
We've boiled this down to 4 core analytical threads that you, the listener, need to learn to identify and, pull at whenever you encounter any of this ideology.
All right, thread number 1. We have to trace the mechanism of liberation rhetoric being used to create sophisticated control.
So how does a guru sell you freedom while also making sure you have to buy their next course next month?
We're looking for those semantic paradoxes, where words like empowerment are actually used to shift 100% of the burden onto you.
Thread number 2. This one is ruthless. It focuses on the economic beneficiaries and power structures.
Follow the money.
Always. Who is making money off of your perceived brokenness? And this isn't just about selling a book. It's about selling metaphysical complexity, creating proprietary knowledge.
And locking you into these perpetual pay-to-play cycles of self-improvement.
Exactly. If the solution were free, the entire system would just collapse.
Thread number 3 is crucial for seeing the pattern. We look for parallel control mechanisms across completely different ideologies.
Right. So we want to know, is the technique that a life coach in Silicon Valley is using structurally identical to the one a cult leader used in the 70s?
Or a corporate management consultant today.
Yes. When you see the same tactics like fear of exclusion or a gross simplification of reality, when you see that everywhere, you know you're dealing with a systemic control architecture.
Not spiritual enlightenment.
And finally, thread number 4, the inversion of critical thinking.
This one is cognitive disarmament. It's how they pathologize rational doubt, how they frame logic as the ego that's preventing your spiritual ascent.
It's insidious. The moment you start thinking critically, about the financial model of the retreat, they'll tell you.
Oh, that's just your ego speaking. You need to quiet the mind.
Yes, it's the immune suppression of the intellect.
Yeah.
And it is arguably the most dangerous tool in the whole box.
Okay. So it's time to use those tools. We're ready to break down the first set of deceptions, and we're going to focus on how this machinery messes with your sense of cause and effect.
So our first major section here deals with what we're calling causality manipulation.
Which is basically the blame game.
It's the ultimate blame game. It's how this system fundamentally shifts the responsibility for suffering. It takes the focus away from, external systems or just random chance.
Things that are messy and hard to fix.
Exactly. And it places it squarely on the shoulders of the individual's spiritual inadequacy.
This ensures the user, never the ideology, is always the one at fault.
Always. And this is where they pour the foundation of the wellness prison, by completely redefining what causes pain.
So let's start with deception 1, inauthenticity as soul disease causality.
The mechanism here is this radical transformation of measurable, verifiable biological reality.
You mean like getting sick?
Getting sick. It turns it into a spiritual failure or a character flaw. This is classic control engineering. If you get cancer, if you develop chronic anxiety, if you have an autoimmune disorder.
Or even just, biological things like menopause or aging.
Yes. The wellness ideology steps in, and the message is...
It's not your genetics, it's not environmental toxins, it's not bad luck.
No. It is a manifestation of your inauthenticity.
Wow.
Your physical problem is just the symptom of some deeper, unaddressed spiritual misalignment, a repressed trauma, a failure to love yourself enough.
So you weren't being vulnerable enough, or you were holding on to some low vibrational guilt.
I mean, just consider the absurdity of it for a second. You can have a measurable chemical imbalance in your brain, something verified by decades of clinical science.
Right.
But the wellness narrative will insist that the true cause is that you haven't forgiven your third-grade teacher yet.
Or that your root chakra is blocked.
Exactly. It moves the goalposts from the observable, testable world into the completely subjective spiritual realm where nothing can be proven.
And the power economics behind this are just so clear. It creates the perpetual self-blame model.
Of course. Because if your physical health problem is actually a spiritual failure, the only cure is more spiritual consumption.
You have to keep buying the retreats, the essential oils, the customized tinctures, the books.
The high-ticket courses that promise to realign you with your true self, which will then supposedly fix the physical problem.
And the emotional weight of that must be crushing. I mean, can you imagine being told while you're battling a severe disease that the reason you're not getting better is because you just haven't achieved the right mindset yet?
The victim is not only suffering from the illness, but now they're also burdened with the moral guilt of failing to heal themselves.
We see a perfect structural parallel to this in the prosperity gospel.
It's identical.
If you're poor, the prosperity gospel says you lack faith, and you fix that by giving more money to the church.
And the wellness gospel says if you're sick, you lack alignment, and you fix that by buying the next healing product or service.
In both cases, they take these massive systemic or biological issues and they individualize them. They shift the focus right back to the person selling the narrative. It's a genius system for profit, regardless of whether you actually get better.
Okay, so the next one is a linguistic sleight of hand. And it's one of the trickiest to spot because it sounds so compassionate.
This is deception 2. The responsibility, not fault semantic trap.
This is that linguistic bait and switch. The guru leans in, they sound really empathetic, and they say something like, look, it's not your fault you were betrayed by your partner, but it is your responsibility to heal it.
Or, it's not your fault you grew up in poverty, but it is your responsibility to manifest wealth now.
And on the surface, that sounds like empowerment. It sounds like taking control of your life.
But if we apply our analytical thread, what is actually happening here?
What's happening is that this concept is being used to absolve external systems or corporations or even abusive individuals of all their accountability.
Let's nail the corporate parallel, because this is everywhere.
It is absolutely rampant.
Think about corporate mindfulness training, stress reduction workshops, or those resilience courses that big, toxic companies offer.
They are teaching employees resilience to toxicity. That's the key phrase.
Which means the employee has to learn meditation and deep breathing and self-care routines to cope with insane workloads, constant understaffing, and abusive managers. That's the responsibility part.
But they deliberately, carefully avoid addressing toxicity.
Right.
Because that would place the burden where it actually belongs.
Yeah.
On the external system,
Okay.
on the company, on the CEO who designed that toxic environment.
So the trap successfully forces the individual to carry the systemic burden internally. It's an internal fix for an external structural problem.
It's a cognitive trap. It takes genuine trauma or difficulty and says, okay, we'll grant you clemency on the cause. We acknowledge your pain, but we demand you take total ownership of the consequence and the very costly path to recovery.
Which ensures you spend your energy and your money fixing yourself rather than challenging the system that caused the harm in the first place.
Okay, moving on. Let's dissect Deception 3. Fear as root causality dogma. This dogma pathologizes one of our most ancient, most essential, and frankly most sophisticated biological functions: fear.
Fear is intelligent threat data.
It's exactly that. It tells you the bear is near, it tells you the interest rate is too high, it tells you the person across the table is lying, or that the guru's financial history seems a little questionable.
It's protective, it's diagnostic, it's necessary for survival.
But the wellness ideology invalidates this instinct completely. The line is always, you must operate from a place of love, not fear.
So by framing fear as the core spiritual failing, a low vibration, they're invalidating rational protective caution.
Absolutely. If you are afraid of leaving an abusive situation, for example, they might suggest that it's your fear that's holding you back from your true self.
Rather than acknowledging that the fear is a perfectly rational response to an actual physical threat.
And the result, it creates anxiety about anxiety.
Oof.
You're not just anxious about the external threat anymore. Now you're spiritually failing because you're experiencing anxiety at all.
Yeah.
You become afraid of being afraid. It's a textbook psychological loop.
And who benefits most from this? From you invalidating your own instincts?
The spiritual fear exorcists, the gurus and the healers, whose primary revenue stream is teaching you how to purge this low vibrational energy.
They sell you proprietary techniques, breath work, expensive ceremonies, specific crystals, all designed to combat the very instinct that might actually protect you from them.
It is the suppression of your critical evaluation, and it's repackaged as enlightenment.
Okay, let's transition now to our final point in this section, which addresses cognitive disarmament directly. This is Deception 10. Stop striving anti-intellectualism.
This one sounds so soothing.
It really does. Just relax, stop pushing, surrender to the moment, flow with the universe. I mean, if you're stressed out, this sounds like salvation.
But here's the goal: cognitive disarmament.
It frames ambition, intellectual analysis, rigorous planning, and critical thinking as pathological.
Yes, the very tools you need for personal agency and for systemic change are framed as ego functions. If you spend your time researching the best career path or, the political history of the system you live in,
They accuse you of striving too hard.
or not allowing the universe to flow,
So who's the power beneficiary here? Who benefits from you not striving?
any system that requires a passive, disengaged populace to maintain its operational integrity.
We see a direct parallel in how Be Here Now gets weaponized for political and economic pacification.
Absolutely. If the public is trained to see long-term systemic critique or collective organizing, or even just personal career ambition as a spiritual flaw, they cease being a threat to the status quo.
They become disengaged observers instead of active strategic reformers.
It's the ultimate sedative. They disarm your ability to analyze your environment and plan a strategic way out. And they leave you with only one option: passive consumption, deep breathing, and just waiting for the universe to align for you.
So if the last section was all about misdirecting the cause of your suffering, this section, epistemic erosion, is about dismantling your entire operating system.
Yeah. And let's define that concept for the listener because it's so central to how this control is maintained.
Okay.
Epistemic erosion isn't just someone lying to you. It's making you forget how to verify facts for yourself.
So it's the intentional dismantling of trust in
Yeah.
measurable reality.
Exactly. Measurable reality, logical systems, peer-reviewed methods. They replace these verifiable structures with subjective complexity.
Like metaphysical jargon, personal revelation, arbitrary rules.
All things that require an interpreter.
And the moment you need a guru, a healer, or some specialized reader to tell you the truth of your own existence.
You have ceded your sovereignty. You can't solve your own problems anymore. You need the priest.
So let's start with Deception 4, mainstream medicine straw man.
This is a textbook example. You create a false dichotomy to weaken established trust.
And the narrative is always positioned as Western medicine just treats symptoms, we treat the root cause.
Right. And this creates an artificial, destructive polarization. It's designed specifically to dismantle your trust in evidence-based, peer-reviewed systems, like established science, doctors, objective inquiry.
They position doctors not as skilled professionals, but as these incompetent pawns of big pharma, motivated purely by profit.
Which sounds rebellious, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're fighting the man.
But the true beneficiary is the alternative medicine industrial complex.
Of course. They need you to reject verifiable data and established expertise so that you will purchase their unproven supplements, their questionable diagnostic tests, and their expensive non-peer-reviewed treatments.
And the danger here is very real. When people are convinced by this false choice, they delay verifiable, timely treatment for serious illnesses.
All based on metaphysical advice. This is the ultimate cost of epistemic erosion. You trade a slow, messy, but evidence-based path to health for a quick, expensive, subjective narrative that frankly often results in terrible outcomes.
The parallel is clear. Any propaganda aimed at destroying centralized trust structures, whether it's government or media or science, paves the way for proprietary self-serving replacement structures to move in.
Okay, next up we have Deception 6, Death Experience as Ultimate Validator.
Here's where objective reality really takes a hit.
It does. Near-death experience, or NDE experiencers, are often granted this unassailable authority in spiritual circles.
And the reasoning is potent. They have crossed the threshold, they have seen the truth, and therefore their subjective, often highly emotional narrative is the ultimate non-negotiable validator of metaphysical reality.
So this creates a spiritual hierarchy that's based on acute trauma.
The fact that they went through a traumatic, life-altering event immediately gives them an authority that bypasses any logical critique.
You can't question it. How can you, the untraumatized, question the one who has faced the void and come back with a revelation?
If you do, you're framed as being closed-minded or disrespectful of their sacred experience.
It's a powerful rhetorical power move. And it's precisely paralleled in historical claims of, say, the divine right of kings or private religious revelation. Authorities granted through some unprovable, transcendent event that only the chosen few experienced.
And if NDEs become the ultimate source of truth, it makes every other form of inquiry, science, history, reasoned philosophy, it makes them all irrelevant.
It creates a system where belief is dictated by whoever tells the most emotionally compelling subjective story.
Now, let's talk about how this subjective complexity is monetized. This is Deception 9, energy field pseudoscience.
This is Obfuscation 101. Concepts like energy fields, auras, chakras, or vibrations, they replace measurable, testable metrics with subjective interpretation dependency.
So instead of diagnosing a chemical imbalance or a nutrient deficiency or a structural issue that you can actually quantify and treat,
You're told your energy is blocked or your vibration is low.
then why is that so insidious?
Because the moment you accept that your problem is blocked energy, you are immediately dependent on the new priestly class.
The energy healers, the psychics, the channelers, the certified coaches.
They are the only ones who can read this metaphysical complexity. They have the proprietary tools, their hands, their crystals, their special certification that you lack.
And because the metrics are subjective and untestable, you can't put an aura on a scale, you can't verify a chakra blockage with an MRI. The client is completely dependent on the interpreter's story.
Right. So if the healing doesn't work after 3 sessions, it's never the healer's faulty interpretation.
No, of course not. It's the client's failure to release the blockage, or their failure to receive the energy.
Or maybe the block was just deeper than they anticipated, which conveniently requires 6 more sessions.
Historically, this is functionally the same as phrenology, which created a pseudoscientific hierarchy by replacing anatomy with bumps on the head.
It's the same thing. Energy field, Pseudoscience replaces biology and physics with arbitrary concepts, and it constructs a metaphysical complexity barrier that only the paid experts can navigate for you.
You literally have to pay someone to tell you what your own inner truth is.
Finally, in this section, let's analyze Deception 7, God as State Rebrand.
Okay, so traditional religions had clear external dogma, clear commandments, clear authority figures, a pope, a king, a prophet. But New Age spirituality provides that same transcendent authority without the formal, easily identifiable religion. It often rebrands concepts of a totalitarian, judgmental God into an impersonal, always observing, universal authority.
Like the universe, or source, or even your own higher self.
And this creates the ultimate internalized hierarchy.
Right. Instead of fearing external, eternal punishment from a god, you now fear a betrayal of your own divine nature. Or you fear going against the universe's preordained plan for you.
So if you fail, it's not society, it's not bad luck, it's not institutionalized oppression.
No, it's a betrayal of the divine within. And this is why the self-blame is so potent. It's not just failure, it's cosmic treason against yourself.
It's actually extremely clever. They remove the formal structure, the church, that might allow people to collectively organize against the dogma.
And they replace it with an inescapable, pervasive internal judgment that maintains the exact same level of control over your behavior.
You can run from a church, but you can't run from your own divine inadequacy.
Okay, we've established the control mechanisms, the cognitive traps. Now let's talk about the hard reality of economics.
Right. Who can actually afford to be free in this system? And how does the entire apparatus handle the inevitable structural failure?
This is where the elitist architecture really comes into sharp relief.
And we have to start with one of the most widely propagated and I would argue most damaging pieces of advice ever manufactured.
Which is?
Deception 13. Create life you love. Privilege blindness.
This advice is just fundamentally blind to systemic limitation. It operates under this crushing assumption that everyone has the basic financial, social, and physical capital to just manifest their dream reality.
As long as their thoughts are pure enough.
Right. It doesn't account for structural racism, gender pay gaps, intergenerational poverty, or chronic unaddressed illness.
Let's put some meat on those bones. Let's contrast two scenarios. Scenario A, a person with a six-figure salary, a supportive family, access to good health care. They use manifestation techniques to find a slightly better job or a great parking spot.
And it works.
Success. Scenario B. A single mother working 2 minimum wage jobs, living in an area with poor air quality, struggling to afford insulin. She tries to manifest basic economic security. When she fails to create the life she loves, what does the ideology tell her?
It tells her that her problem is simply an imagination failure. She just isn't vibrating high enough. She must still have these limiting beliefs locked away in her subconscious.
This devastating oversimplification adds a crushing, wonderful life burden right on top of the existing survival burden.
The system frames severe external limitations, poverty, lack of affordable childcare, environmental stress, as merely a failure of personal intention or visualization.
It is the direct parallel to that archaic, destructive bootstrap economic advice. If you failed, it's because you didn't pull hard enough.
Not because the boots were tied together?
Or because you didn't even own boots to begin with. It reinforces the status of the already privileged by offering a spiritual explanation for their success while simultaneously blaming the marginalized for their lack of basic security.
The rich are aligned, the poor are just spiritually deficient.
Okay, next, let's look at Deception 14. Sensitive introverts as saviors.
This is a classic, flattering, in-group dynamic that serves to pacify a specific demographic.
How so?
The narrative creates this self-identified spiritual elite, the highly sensitive people, the empaths, the starseeds, and they're told they possess this special, delicate spiritual nature.
That makes them uniquely capable of saving the world.
Precisely by not engaging with its messy reality.
Right. The message is, the world is too toxic for your pure, refined energy. Your sensitivity is a sign of your elevated consciousness.
Which encourages disengagement and withdrawal over systemic reform. By claiming a spiritual purity that would be contaminated by dirty things like politics or activism or challenging power.
Or even just critical debate.
This so-called savior group removes itself from the entire field of conflict.
And this is key. It leaves the dominant societal structures intact, unchallenged, while removing potential reformers. All based on these flattering purity claims.
They're told they're too good for the system, so they retreat into their expensive retreats, their sacred spaces, their curated online communities.
Ensuring that they become completely irrelevant to real-world change. They mistake isolation for transcendence.
Okay, now let's get into the hard numbers. The mechanisms. Our deep dive. Power economics table. We need to detail the specific ways these beneficiary classes ensure perpetual revenue and maintain the control loop.
All right, first, the obvious one. The wellness industry itself. Supplements, books, large-scale events, online courses.
Their primary revenue stream is the initial purchase, of course. But their control mechanism is the perpetual self-improvement cycle.
They ensure you never, ever arrive.
They sell the journey, never the destination. Why? Because if you actually solved your life problems with Course 1.0, you wouldn't need Course 2.0.
Oh, so the cycle is maintained by constantly updating the curriculum, declaring old knowledge obsolete,
Or framing genuine life complexity as a new, deeper layer of trauma you need to uncover with their new, more expensive program. You are always becoming, always inadequate, and always needing the next $497 workbook.
Okay, second beneficiary class. The spiritual guides. The psychics, energy readers, esoteric teachers, and the certification bodies.
Their revenue is from interpretation services.
Oh.
And their control mechanism is the metaphysical complexity barrier.
They intentionally use niche jargon and proprietary systems to ensure that understanding is impossible without their expensive training.
They don't teach you to rely on yourself. They teach you that you need their certified technique to access your own self. The complexity is the product. Dependency is the result.
And third, the content creators, especially on high engagement social media platforms.
Their revenue is pure audience engagement clicks, likes, shares, affiliate sales. And they maintain control through flattering in-group dynamics.
Their content is just a constant affirmation of their audience's inherent specialness. You are an earth angel. Only high vibration people will understand this.
Which creates a loyalty loop. The audience needs the creator to reaffirm their unique enlightened status, which keeps them engaged, which keeps the content feed financially viable. The flattery is the hook.
Which brings us to the most crucial, final step in maintaining the system, failure mode reprocessing. We have to analyze what happens when the promises fail.
When the illness persists, the anxiety doesn't lift, the visualization fails to materialize wealth.
In the traditional religious system, failure was painful, but it was often externalized. It was a test of faith or a random act of God or punishment.
But in wellness spirituality, the failure is always interpreted as user failure to properly execute principles.
You didn't visualize hard enough.
Your blockages were deeper than you thought.
You let fear energy creep back in.
The system never, ever, ever accepts accountability for the failure of its own model.
And that mechanism is the perfect control loop. The failure doesn't lead to you rejecting the system, which would be the rational response.
No, it leads to increased system loyalty through self-blame. You conclude the system is perfect, I must be the problem, I need to try harder, I need to buy the next retreat.
The very walls of the prison are strengthened by your unsuccessful attempts to escape. All right, so let's analyze the simplistic rules and the structural improvements that make modern wellness control even more effective than the dogma that came before it.
This is the evolution of the control mechanism we talked about at the start, a system designed for maximum psychological adherence.
We begin with the main enforcement tool, Deception 15, love versus fear binary.
This is a devastatingly effective false dichotomy. It enforces a simplistic moral framework where every human emotion, every motivation, every action
has to be sorted into one of two buckets. Love, which is good, pure, expansive, or fear, bad, constrictive, impure.
And the devastating impacts here is the total elimination of the emotional spectrum, the nuance that you need for mature, complex, effective engagement with the world.
Right. Where does righteous anger against systemic injustice fit into that binary?
Where does critical skepticism fit? Where does strategic caution or determined ambition fit?
They don't.
They're all framed as fear-based or ego-driven and therefore inherently wrong or low vibration.
This enforces passivity. It frames critique, anger, even self-defense as unloving. If you get angry at a politician, you're told you're lowering your vibration.
If you get angry at your abuser, you're told you need to forgive them and operate from a place of love.
It's the ideological parallel to that with us or against us political rhetoric.
Exactly. It removes all nuance. It makes it psychologically impossible to hold complex, useful emotions or engage in challenging actions without violating the core spiritual rule. It forces compliance through emotional constraint.
And then we have Deception 16, rejection as liberation fallacy.
The anarcho-spiritual trap.
Hmm.
Because the world is low vibe, the solution is just to withdraw.
It encourages isolation and personal ascension over systemic engagement and reform. The idea is that you can spiritually secede from the lower vibrational world by focusing purely on your own internal state.
And the consequence is disastrous for the community. You focus on your personal vibration while the bridges collapse around you, while political freedoms are eroded, while the climate crisis deepens.
It leaves all the dominant societal structures, political, economic, corporate, intact and unchallenged.
Because all the highly conscious, supposedly enlightened people have disengaged, believing their retreat is some kind of victory.
They believe they're too pure to get their hands dirty, but in reality, their purity claims are just an excuse for surrender.
It's paralleled in isolationist movements that believe retreat equals liberation, when in fact it's a total surrender of influence and agency in the public sphere.
So to summarize why this system is so robust, we have to look at the control mechanism evolution directly. We have to compare the clunky old external system to the sleek, modern, internalized one.
Let's do it. Where the traditional system used external dogma, the Bible, the priest's word.
Wellness spirituality uses internalized perfection standards, your own self-love score, your alignment.
The enhanced effectiveness, total self-policing. You are your own strictest, most inescapable enforcer, and you do it for free.
Where the old system relied on fear of punishment, hell, jail, public shaming.
The new system uses fear of inauthenticity, misalignment, low vibration being blocked.
And the enhanced effectiveness is psychological self-enforcement. The threat is manufactured inside your own head, and it's running 24/7.
Where traditional hierarchy was based on a command hierarchy, Pope, King, CEO.
The new authority is your higher self-authority.
The enhancement here is that the voice of control is now unquestionable. How can you possibly question your own highest truth, which, by the way, is often channeled through the expensive advice you just paid for?
And finally, traditional control had clear failure conditions. You broke a commandment, you sinned.
The wellness system has moving goalposts. You are never done, never healed, never fully manifested.
Which makes the enhanced effectiveness perpetual striving. The moment you achieve one level of enlightenment, a guru is right there to sell you the next level of ascension.
This brings us to the terminal analysis. Let's synthesize the core vulnerability here, the brilliant inversion. The entire architecture is a brilliant inversion. The system used the most appealing rhetoric, freedom, love, authenticity, to construct more perfect, more inescapable prisons.
The walls aren't made of stone. They're made of self-love and unconditional acceptance, which makes them feel like bliss.
And the guards aren't external priests. They are your higher self, which makes obedience feel like freedom.
And the chains that bind you to the perpetual cycle of consumption and striving are repackaged as invitations for deeper, more complex growth.
And most critically, failure never ever leads to you critiquing the system. It always reinforces your loyalty to the system through self-blame.
You are in a prison that is designed to feel exactly like a spa, and you paid for the membership yourself.
So, we've torn the machine apart. We have exposed the structural failures, the economic drivers, the cognitive traps. Now, the key is to arm the listener, to give you the tools to reject this imposed narrative and reclaim your sovereignty. My provocative command is this: stop trying to heal yourself. Start arming yourself.
Healing, in the wellness context, implies that you are fundamentally broken. We reject that premise.
Completely.
Arming yourself means reclaiming the very tools of agency that they told you were pathological. We need to fundamentally reorient the meaning of our core human experiences. Let's start by reclaiming pain.
The wellness message says pain, anxiety, grief, frustration, depression is a spiritual failure, a block, a low vibration. This is passive and debilitating.
We have to reframe pain and anxiety and frustration as a rational response to an insane world.
Yes. Your panic about the housing crisis is not a manifestation failure. It's intelligent economic awareness.
Your sadness over environmental collapse is not a spiritual block. It's rational empathy.
If you're constantly anxious because the planet is burning, the economic system is designed to exploit you, and your work demands are impossible. That anxiety is not a personal failure. It's a diagnostic signal that something external is deeply structurally wrong.
Reclaiming pain means recognizing that systemic pain requires systemic intervention, not just more self-massage.
Next, we must reclaim fear. Stop seeing fear as a spiritual failing or something you need to instantly purge with breathwork. Reclaim it as intelligent threat data.
Fear is information.
It's information that says, analyze the situation closely, set a boundary here, or run. When you pathologize your fear, you remove your ability to intelligently navigate risk, protect your boundaries, and identify manipulation.
Think of skepticism as a form of strategic fear.
Exactly. When the guru asks you to quit your job and wire them money, that knot in your stomach isn't low-vibe energy. It is your brain's protective threat assessment system flashing bright red.
We have to learn to distinguish between genuine protective caution and irrational, paralyzing anxiety. And the only way to do that is through critical thinking, not through forced suppression.
We must reclaim purpose. The wellness industry sells purpose as something you passively find, through silent contemplation, meditation, or an expensive ayahuasca ceremony.
This is passive consumerism.
We have to redefine purpose as something you forge through engagement and active creation.
Purpose is found in conflict, in building things, in fighting for a cause, in showing up for your community. It's through active participation in life, even when it's messy and frustrating.
Purpose is a verb, not a noun you discover under a palm tree. It emerges from your interaction with the resistance of the real world. Stop waiting for the universe to reveal your purpose, and instead decide what you are going to commit to building or changing today.
And most critically, we have to reclaim critical thinking.
The wellness ideology consistently frames analysis, skepticism, and intellectual doubt as ego pathology, the lower self interfering with your divine flow.
This is the mechanism that ensures the prison door stays shut.
We must reestablish skepticism and critical thinking as a fundamental liberation tool. It is the highest vibrational act available to you.
Critical thinking is what distinguishes between a genuine inner voice, your own values, your own integrity, and the internalized voice of external control sold to you by a wealthy guru or a corporate retreat.
Doubt is not cynicism. Doubt is the act of checking the price tag on the cage.
So the final synthesis is this. The most rebellious act available to you is rejecting the tyranny of love and light entirely.
It means embracing the full spectrum of human response: anger, skepticism, ambition, analysis, and righteous frustration as necessary, sharp tools.
These are the tools required for dismantling constructed warehouses, the external systems of economic and psychological control.
Rather than spending your entire life endlessly chiseling away at the impossible, internalized demands they've placed upon your own soul.
We conclude with a definitive system diagnosis. The wellness system itself constitutes the sickness.
It is designed to profit from your perpetual inadequacy. It demands that you, the individual, internalize the entire diagnosis and treatment burden, ensuring perpetual self-blame, perpetual consumption, and perpetual pacification, all under the guise of freedom. Arm yourselves with skepticism and start breaking things.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. So we've torn apart the wellness spirituality machine. Now the real question is, what is the one spiritual belief you've held onto that you're finally ready to put on the chopping block?
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative. Deconstruct the dogma. See the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.